This tutorial is for 5th grade, Module 2, Lesson 24. In this lesson, we're going to use place value reasoning to find the quotient of division problems when the divisor is a multiple of 10 and the dividend is a decimal. If we look at question A, it kind of walks us through the 3 steps that we'll take. In A, the problem is 1 2/10 divided by 60. We're going to think of 60 as 6 times 10. This will allow us to divide 1 2/10 by 6 and then by 10. So we'll do that in 2 steps. So that's what this first step is showing. We're taking 1 2/10 and we're going to divide it by 6, and then we'll divide that answer by 10. That will give us the same answer as if we divided the whole thing by 60. To start with, we'll divide 1 2/10 by 6. And you can see in the next step, we have written that out in decimal word form. So 1 2/10 is the same thing as 12/10. 1 whole would give me 10/10, and then I have 2 more tenths, so that's 12/10. I'm going to divide the 12/10 into 6 equal groups. That would give me 2/10 in each group. So 12/10 divided by 6 equals 2/10. We'll take that answer and we'll write it now in number form. There's 2/10. And now I'm going to divide it by 10, because that was our second step. When I divide any number by 10, it means that my numbers are getting 10 times as small. And that also means then that those digits just simply move to the right. So if we look at our answer, 2/10 becomes 2/100. So the 2 moved to the right 1 place value, because when I divide by 10, that number becomes 10 times as small. So 2/10 divided by 10 is 2/100, and that's my final answer. 1 2/10 divided by 60 is 2/100. Now let's look at another problem from the start. This one is 2 4/10 divided by 40, and again we'll think of that 40 as 4 times 10. So I'll divide by 4 and then I'll divide by 10. So I'll start by showing my plan. I'm going to take 2 4/10, and I'm going to first divide it by 4, and then I'll take that answer and I'll divide it by 10. So this first line is just my plan. Now let's take 2 4/10 and divide it by 4. So 2 4/10 in decimal word form would be 24/10, because there's 10 tenths in each whole number, and I have 2 wholes, so that's 20 tenths, and then I have 4 more tenths. So that would be 24/10 divided into 4 equal groups. So if I have 24 and I divide it into 4 equal groups, that gives me 6 in each group, and we're working with tenths, so that would be 6/10. Now let's take this answer and write it back in number form. 6/10 is 0.6, and we'll take that and we'll divide that by 10. And again, that means my 6 is going to get 10 times as small, and I can show that by shifting the 6 over 1 place value. 6/10 divided by 10 is 6/100. That tells me that 2 4/10 divided by 40 is 6/100. Let's look at a couple of more questions. These have decimals that reach into the hundredths, but it works the same way. So here I have 45/100 divided by 90. I'm going to think of that 90 as 9 times 10. So my plan is I'm going to take 45/100 and I'm going to divide it by 9 first, and then I'm going to divide that answer by 10. So 45/100 written in decimal word form would be 45/100, and I'm going to just abbreviate hundredths to save space here, and I'll divide that by 9. So if I have 45 and I divide it into 9 equal groups, that gives me 5 in each group, and we're working with hundredths. So 45/100 divided by 9 is 5/100. I'll write that answer in number form. So there's my 5/100, and now I'm going to divide that by 10. which means that 5 is going to get 10 times smaller, and it will shift over 1 decimal place. So instead of 5/100ths, it's now 5/1000ths. That tells me that 45/100ths divided by 90 equals 5/1000ths. And let's look at one more. This one is 5 25/100ths divided by 50. My plan is to take 5 25/100ths, divide it first by 5, and then divide it by 10. I'll write this in word form. So if I think of hundredths, I have 5 wholes there. So that's 500 hundredths and then 25 more. So that's 525 hundredths. And I'm going to divide that by 5. Okay, I'm going to do this division in my head. 500 divided by 5 is 100. 25 divided by 5 is 5. So that tells me my answer is 105 hundredths. To write that in number form, I know that the 5 needs to land in the hundredths place. So that would give me 1 whole and 5 hundredths. And I'm going to take that and divide it by 10. Everything gets 10 times as small, so I'm going to move everything over 1 place value to the right. And that tells me that 5 25/100ths divided by 50 gives me 105/1000ths. So there's using place value understanding and that pattern of the digits becoming 10 times smaller, so the digits moving over to the right each time to help us solve these division problems.